2, 1.
We'd like to welcome you to another edition of Grok Talk, brought to you by New Hampshire's leading conservative blog site, GraniteGrok.com. We are your feared extremist, right-wing, hard-charging, gun-toting, opinionated, outspoken, rabble-rousing, letter-writing, radio microphone-stomping conservatives and rational libertarians. So get ready for more news and opinion you could only get from GraniteGrok.com.
Grok Talk.
All right, welcome to another edition of Grok Talk. It is February already, can you imagine? And just a few days from now, the New Hampshire First in the Nation primary will occur on next Tuesday. And we'll find out who New Hampshire picks as their preference for the Republican primary candidate. Welcome to the program. I want to let you know who's in the room. First of all, Emily Sandblade's back. We're going to talk about some Republican primary politics. Mike Rogers, of course, and Skip Murphy, who are always here. Later on in the show, Max Abramson will be joining us to talk about Medicaid expansion. From the American Principles Project, Ralph Benko, to talk about the gold standard and, of course, the primary and the Republican candidates and how they're talking about economics. And Lisa Desjardins is here with PBS NewsHour, and we welcome her to the program, as well as a couple other folks. And then Alex Rubian from the New Jersey Second Amendment Society will join us. Don't forget, you can listen to this and past programs on Spreaker, Stitcher, iTunes, TuneIn, iHeartRadio, The Rock, NHCR.com, and, of course, GraniteGrok.com. So
you forgot Ustream.
Ustream right now. But it's not, doesn't Ustream sort of drop the show after a while?
Well, that's why we put it on YouTube.
I know. Okay, so anyway, we really want to talk to Emily, and we really want to find out what she thinks. So we're going to turn some microphones on and start a conversation here. Last week we talked about Medicaid. We're going to talk about that again in 20 minutes, but you wanted to talk a little bit about presidential politics?
Oh, we could talk about the presidential politics. It's what everybody's talking about right now.
And Medicaid, or, you know.
Please make it stop.
Yes.
I'm done.
It's exhausting.
We're all living for Wednesday.
I'm taking 2 days vacation, one to participate in the primary process and one to get over it the day after, get over the hangover.
It has been a long...
Yeah.
How
2
long?
years.
2 years.
2 years.
I
mean, we're all news junkies and political junkies here, but even I'm tired of the 20 calls a day asking for my opinion. Hello, who are you? Thank you, but no. Click.
Yeah.
That's the funny thing is I haven't been getting any calls, but I'm on the do not call registry, so I've escaped most of that.
We like to see who calls. You know, you get the campaigns that call, and you get all these crazy numbers from all these places around the country, Chico, California, and places in Utah and Wisconsin, and we just look at the number and go, them again. You know, they just keep calling us.
Well, the only people I've had call were Democrat pollsters. I mean, and very obviously Democrat pollsters, groups that were looking for my opinion on that, and wanting to know if I was going to vote for Hillary or Bernie. And I tell them that I was going to vote for Vermin Supreme, who is on the Democrat ballot.
Yeah.
Did you you just want the unicorn? Is that
I want the free pony.
the free pony? You're after the free pony.
I'm all for the free pony.
You know, Rick Olson, who might be here later, we never know. Sometimes our guests come and go, but he said that he wanted to vote for Vermin because he'd never tried pony before, and that was the best way to get one.
I think it is.
And for those
There's going to be a lot of pony remains in the street.
Yeah, and for those of our
Pony
listeners
leavings.
who have no idea who we're talking about, Vermin Supreme is a libertarian activist who actually he's a political satirist, and he is the candidate who walks around with a rubber boot on his head.
And his open carry holster strapped to the side of said boot.
Yes, and he is a little bit of political funster type stuff that we have here in New Hampshire. We always have those kinds of folks here, and it breaks up.
And he filed for president the same day as Ben Carson, and actually before Ben Carson, and had some pithy comments, and also was resentful that the Secret Service prevented him from carrying his open carry in his holster attached to his boot.
Which, by the way, is quite legal in the State House normally.
Yes.
Correct.
All right, so a couple days left before the chaos ends for us.
Yes, there's
And,
a couple of days.
What are you thinking?
Well, I mean, the polls are showing that I checked the polls this morning, and they're showing that Trump is still leading, although his lead's trimmed down a couple of points. And then Rubio is surging ahead, and Cruz is coming in third place according to the latest polls. Mm-hmm. But I consider the polls to be not very good at this point. because people are still, tweaking with the pollsters. And the pollsters are having a hard time getting anybody to answer their questions at this point.
Yeah.
If you call anybody, I do some polling as part of my business, and if you call anybody up, it's almost impossible to get anybody to respond to a poll at this point.
Right. Well, like I said, I'm so tired of being, the 20th, 21st, 22nd call of the day. I don't want to do it anymore. I've got better things to do.
And some people don't answer the phone. I don't answer poll calls.
Oh, a good many people don't answer the phone at this point. So it's very problematic because if you've got a huge majority of your population not answering the phone, and we're talking in the upper 90 percentiles, in that range that don't answer the phone and refuse to participate in a poll, there's actually no way statistically that that poll is a good quality poll.
It's a poll of people who answered the phone.
It's a poll of people who answered the phone, and you have to assume that they're answering the phone for a reason. Either
they don't have a caller ID.
Most of the time it's because they don't have a caller ID, and the only people who don't have caller IDs are people who've had the same black phone sitting in their house for 50 years and haven't changed it out. Yeah, I am not kidding you. I mean, I swear it must be that, and they must be 80 years old.
Yeah,
they're all 80 years old or better. And they're the only ones who don't have caller ID, and they're answering the phones. And so you can't expect that to be a fair poll.
So either that or they got enough time on their hands to mess with the pollsters, which most of us, frankly, don't.
So do you feel like this had an effect on Iowa? I mean, their polls weren't awful, but
they weren't very good either.
They didn't come out right.
No, they clearly didn't.
I think they measured attitude fairly well. What they didn't measure was enthusiasm and ground game. And I've read a couple of pieces this week. I read them before Iowa as well, but more pieces saying that Trump doesn't really understand what a ground game is, and therefore hadn't directed his people to put the right boots on the ground in Iowa. Whereas Cruz had done the full Grassley and had over 12,000 folks, volunteers on the ground in the precincts herding the cats for him.
No, I think it's a great point because for the last couple of cycles, be it midterm or presidentials, the polling has been awful. I mean, just look at Bratt versus Cantor.
Oh, that was fabulous.
And, I mean, you look at the turnaround in the polls where Cantor should have been a walk-in, and he got stomped on, and everybody's going, what the heck? And it's getting to the point where the polls can't be done at this point because exactly. Caller ID, perfect example. I don't want to talk to these people. I get a call at the same time every single night. Operations research. We just turn off the ringer and that's it. But they've been calling us literally for 4 months, 5:30 every single day.
There's an odd side effect to this. When my phone rings, almost nobody in my house gets up to see who it is. I got 5 people, 3 wireless phones, right? Cordless phones. Everybody, I hear the phone ringing. There's no phone near me. And I'm like, hello? Anybody getting up to see who that is? If the TV's on, the TV will tell you who it is because it just shows up there. But if nobody's watching TV, nobody cares who it is. They're just like, I'm done. I don't care who it is.
Well, what it means is it gets skewed to the very old voters. And it gets skewed away from the younger voters or the middle-aged voters. And what they try to do, and pollsters do this all the time, is they try to apply an algebraic correction to the numbers to try and adjust it to give more weight to the middle-aged voters and the younger voters to try and compensate. But I've done one poll fairly recently where our older voters outnumbered everybody else by a factor, and we're talking over 65, outnumbered everybody else that we were able to get to answer the phone. They outnumbered them by about 5 to 1, which, of course, is extremely biased in that direction. And applying an algebraic correction to that doesn't help you at all. It gives you a really poor quality result.
We're almost 65 and we won't touch these damn calls. We'll go look at the candidates ourselves.
But the problem is, and I've been putting up all the videos. I got to put up Jesse Waters of Waters World of Fox News. He went to yet another college campus just to ask a simple question. Did you know what happened last week, meaning the Iowa caucuses? Do you know what's going to happen next week, meaning our first in the nation primary? They can't even find New Hampshire on the map. This is at the University of Maryland, if I remember right. I mean, at least it's on the same end of the country. You would think that most of them got, it's somewhere here in New England. You go, couple of clueless people out west or in the Midwest trying to point it out 5 times, can't get it straight. They have no clue. There's another one by Mark Dice I just put up.
Oh, he's good.
Hillary has just announced that, she's going to hire her economic advisor to be her vice president, Karl Marx. Would you sign this petition to try to help that along? And they go, oh, sure. Most of them have no idea what these political terms, they have no idea the difference between capitalism versus socialism versus communism versus fascism versus communitarianism. I mean, they just have no clue. They have no idea of current events. Frankly, if they're not in your polls, I'm good with that because we're supposed to have an informed electorate. I'm sorry. These guys aren't even informed about what they're doing now.
They should take civic tests before they get their voter registration.
But they can tell you every single celebrity that's going on, and they can tell you all of the nuances of J-Lo versus Beyonce and all of that stuff.
Which I couldn't tell you.
Yeah, right, because it doesn't matter in the big deal, other than Breitbart did say politics. Famously, he said, politics is downstream from culture. You change the culture, you change the politics. And we see in the colleges, though, they'll tell you everything about microaggressions, diversity, white privilege, Black Lives Matter, every single social justice warrior issue that you can think of that has absolutely no use at all for the most part when you're doing real work like programming or physics like you do or any of this stuff. It's like they're changing the disposition of the country.
So here's a question, and we've addressed this question repeatedly. My journey into the land of civics started in the early 2000s, and then around 2008 I started a blog, and blah, 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 and here I am. I learned a lot by going out and, saying, I don't know enough about how my government works. I don't know enough about politicians. I don't know enough about the process. I don't know enough about the founding. So I went out and I said, well, there's plenty of material here. I'm going to go learn. Not very many people are going to do that.
No.
So if we want to solve this problem, or at least approach a solution, what do we do?
Yeah, that's a good point. When I came to this country, I didn't know much about American politics and civics, obviously. But during the period shortly after I came to this country, I traveled all around the world. And having been interested in politics in England and a supporter of Thatcher, I would look at the local newspapers, try and absorb a little bit in whatever foreign language it was. A lot of it was Spanish because I traveled Latin America quite a bit. Mm-hmm. And I learned about banana republics and the changing of who was in poder, and it was very interesting. And then you talk to the local folks and try and get their impressions. And then, as you say, it came to around 2000, and especially after the Clinton era and then the Bush versus Gore, there was a lot to learn. And by the time 2007 came around and Barrio was running, I was pretty well versed in what was going on with American civics and Constitution. And about that time, I ran into you guys.
And you know a heck of a lot more than most people.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Well, I think from the time that I keep going back to this, but you go back to the Frankfurt School back in the 1920s, who had emigrated from Germany to California, found it too much of a decadent lifestyle, and they moved to Chicago. But between them and the Italian socialist Gramsci, who said, we're not going to do this the economic class warfare because it doesn't work here in the U.S., although one would look at the Democrat side of the political spectrum right now in the primary. I think that's exactly what they've done. But they decided, well, to change the politics, we have to change the culture. And the left, especially the new left movement based in the 60s, said, we do this by changing the education. And I find so many young people totally oblivious as to what the real history of the United States is. Not the political correctness crap where the founders are to be tossed out simply because they all owned slaves anyways.
And they were white men.
Old white guys,
old white guys.
Old rich white men. But you go through that, and that says everything that they've done is totally useless, even though the Constitution and the philosophies behind it, as you read in the Federalist and Anti-Federalist papers, was something that was radical at that idea that we were the sovereigns, that we were supposed to have a government that served us instead of being subject to a government as subjects, basically.
Yeah.
And we see that being tossed away, even to the point where the University of Connecticut is now resegregating its campus because they're creating a black-only dorm. Okay, so how far have we come from the civil rights era of the 60s and the 50s to see where they're segregating themselves. And you know, and it's happening in various other sub-micro cultures as well. We're missing that melting pot, and I'm not even sure that we're tossed salad anymore, because tossed salad basically says we can move around. I think we're becoming an ice block.
All right, we're going to take a quick break. Max is in the room, and we're going to talk about Medicaid expansion in New Hampshire. Stay tuned.
Excellent.
Rock Talk.